want to give you an update about what's going on in the legislature. As many of you may know, all of the bills that need to be introduced have to be introduced in the first 10 working days of the legislature. And that happened to be, the deadline for that was Wednesday, January 20th. So all of the bills have been introduced. So you may say that to a certain degree, the table has been set. We know how many bills there are, how many constitutional amendments. I think in my previous update, I predicted that we would have around 700 bills. I missed it by 16. Next stage that we go to is committee hearings. And in years past, the committee hearings, how the legislature handled things, was that they would have floor debate in the morning and committee hearings in the afternoon, open to the public. So and every bill gets a hearing. They've all been assigned to the committees or in the process of being assigned to committees now. And each of the 14 standing committees will have hearings on their bills. All-day hearings will take place because of the pandemic. That's a change in the process, and they're open to in-person testimony. You can also submit written testimony. We anticipated that there was going to be a virtual option to testify as well, but unless things change, that is not an option. And we're always with many things in the pandemic. We're always looking for new instructions, things like that, and it's understandable. We have to adjust and make things work around the coronavirus and things like that. Don't know exactly when the committee hearings will end because it depends a lot on the workload for each of the committees. Right now, our list is about 115 to 120 bills that we need to do more analysis of to determine just how interested and what sort of actions we're going to take on those bills. The process for helping us do that, as all of you know, we're a grassroots organization. We have a state legislative policy committee. We're bringing them into town next Tuesday, the 26th. We'll have a meeting to discuss the more notable bills. There's no way we'll get through all 115 or 120, but the real big ones that we need to have advice to discuss strategy, maybe line up people to testify, which we always like to get members to testify on bills if possible because there's a much greater connection between the actual producer and the policymakers. So those are some things that keep on your radar screen that we'll be looking for from our members as we move through the hearing process. And then once they're done with hearings, they'll have floor debate. We'll be looking for help. Some days we'll have virtual days at the Capitol, depending on the pandemic. Other days we might be able to meet personally with some of the senators. We've categorized the bills. There's probably about a dozen bills of interest to us in the rural connectivity, the broadband area. There's over 40 bills that deal with taxes. That's not surprising. And I think close to 24 either bills or constitutional amendments deal with property taxes specifically. There are 4 constitutional amendments that I can think of. Senator Brewer has one that limits the total amount of property taxes that can fund education to 33% of the total bill. And then Senator Breezy has a constitutional amendment that requires the state to pay all of the in-classroom expenses of the schools. And there is a formula for calculating that. And then Senator Linehan, I believe on behalf of the governor, introduced a constitutional amendment that limits the amount of property tax growth in any political subdivision to 3% per year to try and control that. And then Senator Erdman from out of Baird has introduced a constitutional amendment that calls for a consumption tax. Part of that would be aimed at, I would replace our sales tax, income tax, and property tax structure. And so those are 4 of the notable ones in the property tax arena. We also have some bills in the energy arena. There's some net metering bills. There are several bills about renewable energy. We're also, some of our higher priorities are in rural economic development and incentive programs such as the Beginning Farmer Act or the Microenterprise Act. There are several bills that have been introduced to modify, reform those. some of the things, yeah, we want to be at the table on all of those to make them better, more user-friendly for our members and also our counterparts that in the rural areas, that in the rural communities that we rely on to help us do what we do, whether it's market our products or provide our inputs. We're very interested in those as well. So there's going to be a lot taking shape. We have a lot of bills to read. I have an idea, or we have an idea about some of them. Some of them we know much better, but we're going to get to know all of these bills really well on a very rapid basis, and we're going to do our best both through daily updates as well as continued updates like this to let you know what's going on.